Hello, everybody. I've been joined by
Hi.
Ben from 4Ground, and today we're going to be having a little bit of a look inside his brain, having a look at the design process of 4Ground.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
You know that picture
I
with
am.
the stairs turning and twisting each and every different way? I'm kind
Yeah.
of imagining we're going into that. Can we get Twilight Zone music going?
The great thing is I can never actually remember where I've been, so it's always a new journey for me.
Well, the first thing
This isn't my...
Oh, I know this isn't yours.
Yeah.
But the first thing I think we should discuss is the process you go through from the initial idea to finished product. So how do you go through that process?
So we go through the same process we used to go through when it wasn't a kit.
Mm-hmm.
So when it was a model that somebody required, so we would, and it would be historical usually. So you'd do your research, other than Google, although I'm not knocking Google, it's a good place to start.
You don't go to Wikipedia, do you?
I always go to Wikipedia because I always like to put my...
Some guy. This is some guy on the internet.
No. I am some guy. No. Yeah, so then you do your research. You find you find that somebody or some organization normally has a wonderful collection, a portfolio of images. If you're talking about anything from the mid-19th century onwards, so you can get some lovely photographs that are contemporaneous, and that really, really helps. So then you make the model, and then when you've made the model, the next stage, which is the stage that what we've been really excited about over the last half decade or so, is then you make that into a kit. And now you always have to have a situation where the more complex, the more realistic, the more awesome you want to make that kit, the more complicated it will be as a kit. And then then you have a situation that it's just like, I'd rather pull teeth than make this 4Ground kit. But we were always experimenting with different things, hence the idea of the level of 4Ground build. Andy's new train engine, it is fantastic, but I think he's going to give it a build level 7. And when you think our sort of very basic kits are a level 2 or a level 3.
I see. So it's for the experienced person who's worked with 4Ground kits before.
Not necessarily work with 4Ground, but they're quite methodical in the way they build kits. So they could have come from any other kit building discipline or construction discipline. It's about making sure you look through the instructions before you start. You decide your running order, and also you'll see that the instructions, the 4Ground instructions, what we do is we make sure that the designer actually builds the kits and photographs at every single stage, because that's really important. It's not enough just to have an exploded diagram. That designer has to have actually been able to build a genuine, real kit from that. They take the photographs and they try and explain how it's done. So when you've gone through that list of the running list of how it's made, you can then see, at that period I would let that rest. All right, then, so I'll leave that rest, and then I would go on to that bit that's a bit further down.
It's just some assemblies.
Yeah, and that's like yourself, especially when I know sometimes you have mammoth tasks of many buildings, and you make your little assembly line there, and you have those breaks for it to dry. And
yeah, well, I mean, like whenever I'm production lining buildings for 4Ground, okay, so the ones that I've built the most of are the Field Realms high street houses.
You did, yeah.
And the way I always did those was, okay, so I've got the floor and 2 walls are on. I'm going to pop that to the side for a minute, let that rest. Oh, look, I can do the same again on this side.
Yes.
Now I'll let that rest.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's resting. Now I can come back to that and finish that off. Okay, there's a little set of steps to do here. I want to let that entire box rest for a while. Let's do that little set of steps. Okay, the set of steps is done. Let's do the final outside of the frame. All right, let's move on to the next
And that's
bit.
the experience of the person who's actually undertaking the project. Otherwise what you'll do if you're new to it is you'll go, oh, that step. Oh, I can't do this step now. Or that was too weak. I should have, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Hopefully some of them are a real challenge. Some of them are quite relatively straightforward.
There is one little cheat I use for some of your kits.
Hammer?
No, not a hammer. No, so you have the 4Ground glue that you guys formulated that dries super quick.
Well, yeah, it's a full-strength PVA glue.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is that, I know other people are saying about full-strength this and full-strength that. It's not a gimmick. It's actually, we've not just decided to put it on our stuff. It's actually, we've got the cost reports for it.
Yeah.
It's a real deal. It's not just...
Yeah, but the cheat is I'll use that because all right, in all honesty, for any HDF kit these days, I only use 4Ground glue because it works well. But if I find I need to cheat, what I'll do is I'll put my glue on and then I'll tack weld with super glue.
Do you know what? It's really funny you should say that, because I agree with that. If you think about it, certain situations you do, if you need a third pair of hands, I agree with that. So you put your glue on and you know you're going to need a third pair of hands. A dot of super glue keeps that in there. The reason that the full strength PVA glue we use, I prefer it to most situations when I would otherwise use a super glue, is because you have that tiny bit of wriggle time, that tiny bit of wriggle room to get it. And then I always, with the card, because we do it in 3mm MDF, 2mm HDF, and we also do it with 1mm card. But because you've got the two layers of the paint primer, the card is more like a fibrous material within the finished material. So it's not so much this is card, it's that this stuff, this 1mm has card within it. But the fact that it is card, it means it has a lot of strength until you put it under pressure. So if it bends, if you bend card, it will always have that weak point. And what I like to do with a liquid super glue is to just seal it all, get the capillary action of the glue to go into the card. Sometimes people who do that call it a wicking effect. So you just touch it with not the gel one, but with the liquid one, and it will just make that rock hard. You'll be surprised. It then becomes a complete resin thing, because it's the super glue that's the bonding agent in that respect.
We see it's what I like even on the HDF, because if I'm tack welding, that's absorbing between the two components, and you've got a joint point there, and so you're actually making a block of, or a small dot of hard resin within it.
That's right. That's exactly what's
really well.
That's what's working. Yes, I agree. So yes, it's that's something that you've learned over time. Everyone, or you may have heard it or read about it somewhere. But what happens normally is you go, oh, what if I do this? And then you remember those little. And that's why there are so many people that collect, our kits. And that's really nice. It's really nice that they do. So,
And then there was one other one I had thought about, which I haven't tried just yet. So, the way you have that final dubbing that goes in between the wood framing on the sides of those buildings? Yeah, I want to take that and actually dust that layer and see if I can change the color of the building.
Oh, yeah, you should.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah, you should. The thing is that we have 26 colors, and those 26 colors, they are all designed as a primer sealer for fibrous material. Very high pigment in them. So the whole thing is you can change the colors completely. We just have this sort of colors, the different colors, so that people don't have to these are our recommended base colors. If you think about the dark age buildings that we do, the plaster is very sort of sandstony, and the stonework is very dark. That's because we are imagining they would lighten it.
I actually have an idea now, something I want John to do. I want him to take one of those for a building, and you see the internal walls. I want him to actually do it as if he's on one of those home decorating shows, do a video of that. And him spraying, okay, so this wall's going to be all red. And then we're going to do a feature wall of gold. And then actually build the kit after he's done that.
But then make him do stencils. So we go, oh, that looks lovely, butterflies on the wall.
Oh, I have to make this as a skit video at some point. John's going to cry right now.
Probably is,
Anyway, we went off on a tangent there. Back on target.
How strange.
So you're on about the design process. Now, you gave me some images for one that you're working on at the minute, which is you're redoing Rorke's Drift.
That's a pet project, rather. That's something I want to revisit, and also because of some conversations I've had with a few friends and some industry colleagues as well about that.
But it's the ideal one, because while you've been over this week, you've been working away on it. So this is me wanting to look inside your brain.
Because this is December.
And so I want to have a look at it. So you've sent me some images, so if you want to take me through what we're seeing in them.
Oh yeah, okay, right. So here we've got, I need a sticky thing. I haven't got one. I've got can I borrow that?
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'll use this end. All right. So here you've got, this is the Rorke's Drift site as it is now. So this is the rebuilt, what would be where the hospital's footprint was, just over there.
So on the right, that's what went on fire.
And the chapel the chapel at the time was actually a storeroom that DeWitt had converted the year before to, so it's a barn. So it's much more like this. So that's actually the interesting thing about this picture is it's got some very it's got some very interesting pieces that are possibly right, and some pieces in it that are definitely wrong. If you look at this, we'll come back to it in a minute, but if you look at the gable end on there,
Yeah.
we know from Fort Bromhead that was built from the remains that was there, that this roof is not correct for what was there.
Right.
But what is interesting, and I'll come back to it, is can you see there's a small, I don't know if you can get
In the
that
circle
any
there?
bigger. You see in the circle, yeah. I don't
Yeah,
know if
yeah,
you
yeah.
can-
And what's that?
Well, in the circle, if you look, there's a wall there.
Ah.
Now, if you look at, we'll go on in a minute and we'll look at Chard's actual drawings. But Chard says that this bit in here, he believes in there, it's actually in some way part of the building. Yeah, he makes it quite clear that the veranda here and the veranda here, they aren't part of a building, they are outside.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point to that. Now then, you see this corral up here?
Yeah, in the top picture, yes.
That's that.
Ah.
That is in exactly the same spot it was in. And you see the rocks in the garden?
Yeah. Ah,
They're
in
still there.
parallel.
I know John Starlow from Warlord has actually been there, and I would love to go there.
Is this your bucket list?
Yeah, oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, and then you can see the final redoubt there that's been marked out. But yeah, I mean, so that's the actual location.
Yep.
So for that, I get an idea of what colour the stone should be. And then from this, this is a nice, interesting piece. But it's got one window there. I'm not sure about that. There's a window there. So this is what I do when I try and pick it up. It's got something going on here that they seem to think needs to be mentioned, stonework. But this seems as if it's render, because in other places they have definitely put some stonework, and in other places they've deliberately not. So possibly that is rendered, and that's what I'm getting from that. Some of these lines that lead down, they lead down to other statements I'm making below, because this is half of an A4. I
Yeah.
think.
So this is basically you figuring out where are the parallels between the modern and the old drawing.
Yes.
Because this is the thing, you don't have photographs of this
No,
in the day.
no.
It was
We
before
have
that.
we have some photo. No, it's not before it. We have some photographs, but we don't. It was Rorke's Drift wasn't really a place of interest until after this, and so
see.
we only have photographs after the event, and of course the hospital
It burned
has all burned
yeah.
down. Yeah,
I see.
So.
All right, well, if we move along,
Yeah,
you've
so,
then
so
got,
right,
these are the
so
photos.
these are the photo. So this is blown up almost beyond recognition, but I needed to do it. But you can now see, if we were talking about the gable end before, you can now see that this should really be a double set of doors, and the roof is right back like this on both sides.
Yes.
And then you can also see on here that this is open completely.
Yes.
When we did the one with Warlord, we came to the conclusion with John and Paul, I think, that this wall carries on right the way through and you can see a line in the wall there. So we decided that wall carries right the way through. So part of it is enclosed and part of it is not enclosed.
I get you.
And then the trouble is that, so that's what we thought it was. But now if you look at it, one of the other options was that you could see that line there and that line there, they're actually the two ends of this wall that had been taken down. You know yourself when you're doing building work and restoration work,
yeah.
sometimes you'd see the ghost of something else that was there before.
Trust me, I've seen boys just literally cut a new frame or a new hole in a wall and actually put a beam across the head.
Yeah, now then Chaplain Smith, when he goes to the site, because he's the one that's up on the up top the morning with DeWitt, and they say like, oh yeah, there's loads of them, and it's like, oh, these are native troops, and there's loads of them, and they're not ours. And that was that. So he was the chaplain that was there, and he said that he described having the homestead, the buildings, the farm buildings were a nice compact group, and they included a stable.
Yes.
Now there is no stable there because a stable tends to be an area. If we could go back, so that I'm saying that this is the stable. So I believe that there was a wall there, there was a door there,
Yeah.
and the reason
reason
it's definitely whitewashed in there is because whitewash was a common disinfectant used in the past. So that's that bit there, and then.
In the upper picture, yes.
You can see in the upper picture there, you can see some of the other doorways, but you can also see how that this is a definite brick. It's probably so just there is a definite brick, that's stonework.
Yes.
Down here, that's stonework, that definitely dropped down, and there was nothing there before. So we know it was open.
Yeah.
Now, if there's any chance to go back to the other one, I can then.
This one?
Yeah, so I'm talking about this bit here.
Where the
So
circle
you
is,
see
yes.
why that could have been a doorway for a stable going in there. The main thing for a stable area, it would be somewhere where you could actually put, and he's calling it a stable. We might call it a livestock shed or something like that. And he's in Africa. You know, it's not just wolves you've got to worry about in Africa. So I think that horses were kept in there, but also some of his cattle would have possibly been kept in there.
Yeah.
And that's why I believe that when we go further on in a minute, we will see. And if we could do that,
Yeah. So
yes, no, right. So now, remember what I was saying.
yeah.
So now this is something that's interesting because this happened actually in 2014. Some of the sketches that Lieutenant Child actually made for Queen Victoria, so she could better understand the action, are actually now
Released
on public view.
Yeah.
And so we now have some interesting definitive information, like, you know, there you've got, so looking at this now, there is the hospital, there is the barn or the chapel as it was at the time, there's the corral we were talking about, there's it was a non-substantial corral, so what that means, it's all relative, but there's the garden and the rocks we were talking about, and there's the road that comes around the front. There's the road that would have come up from the drift, and this is the direction that those African troops were coming from, and they believed that they were, because they'd crossed so early on, they believed these were actually native troops that were not on the side of the Zulus.
So they're swinging up from the lower left corner of this picture.
Yeah, so you can see this is the route of the advance of these Zulu troops.
Yeah.
Now we know a few things, like we know that they definitely had that one of their leaders, Induna, was on horseback. We know that from certain other accounts, and we know what happened when they got near there. But if we go further on, the reason we know this is because, okay, so this is talking about ranged fire coming in here.
Yeah.
But the first thing that actually happens is that when they come down, when the Zulus come rushing over here. Okay,
yeah. So up from that bottom left corner.
So now you've got there's the high ground here. Okay. So the Zulus have come from there, around there, and they're now on top of the hill. They're now shooting down, but for whatever reason, they're not that accurate. Now, it could be because they're using older rifles. It could be lack of experience with those guns or muskets or whatever. But we know that it was more of a hindrance and a nuisance that was coming. It was making people keep their heads down. Right, you know, stray shots would take.
Yeah. No, you see, I played this game with Jerry.
Yeah.
And I actually made the mistake of constantly shooting at the hills.
Yeah. No, Goof, but it's really. But just think, this is actually towards the end of it. I mean, we have got it in the other way around, but we can show you it in a moment. But this is interesting because, do you remember I was saying to you about that stable area? This is here, and this is all red shaded in a building. That's a veranda, that's white. That's a veranda, that's white.
Yeah.
And in some of the pictures, there's some little doorway here, and then others there isn't.
Yeah.
But it's very good because you can see. Do you remember in that picture earlier on that we saw that in the corral were actually British soldiers, and that drawing, and in this. People never really talk much about the corral, but after 2014, it's quite obvious that they did consider this corral to be
part of the defences.
Yeah, definitely substantial enough to be part of the defences. So here you've got the mealie sacks and then the biscuit boxes for the final redoubt.
Yeah.
But what happened is you actually find that they took Hook, who was based in here. The real Hook, who was quite a hero, really, rather than the one in the movie. But the guy that was with him ran away. So I think they tried to amalgamate the two people. Yeah. So Sergeant Maxfield was in that room there. We know that. We know certain disposition in the hospital because we know that, if I'm boring you, you've got to tell me.
No, it's fine. It's
fine. So we know, for instance, that there were 6 able-bodied men sent to guard the inhabitants of the hospital.
Yes.
So they were sent in 3 pairs, and that's because if you've got men in a building, being in pairs is a great idea.
Yeah.
This building here, this room there were 2 soldiers. There were 2 soldiers here, and there were 2 soldiers here. Now, the other people that were shooting were able-bodied
Wounded,
patients. And then, so we have the able-bodied patients, we have the bed-bound patients, and we have the troops that were actually sent in. And they were sent in by Bromhead, because what a lot of people don't know about Bromhead is that he was actually considered quite an able officer. He was also considered brave, but he was completely deaf in one ear.
Really?
And that was the reason that they think he probably had this command, not because he wasn't any good as an officer, but because he had a severe disability. I haven't yet been able to find out whether it was an explosion going off in that ear or whether it was just something that had developed over time. And so then we also have Chard there as well. And, you know, Chard is considered to be the hero of the moment. Possibly it was Commissar Dalton, because he was a retired sergeant, I believe. And he, looking in his records, he had passed the exam for siege works. Oh, okay. So he actually had been trained when he was in the military to be a siege work engineer, as far as making redoubts and that kind of thing. We do know certain accounts now, like, for instance, when Chard found out he was going to be in charge, or he wasn't that concerned because he still carried on having his breakfast. And then when he came back to Rorke's Drift, he was actually summoned because Bromhead had news that there was something that was wrong, that there was a large body of native troops that no one really knew what they were, and they had now at this moment just identified that they were Zulu. Then apparently it's transpired that then Chard said the best thing they should do is up and leave. And while he was doing this, Dalton apparently was having the siege works built, and then he reminded both the officers there, because as a member of the commissariat, it's a sort of like a quasi-military civil service kind of people. He said to them, they will outrun you. If you leave here today, they will kill you. And it was at that moment they decided to actually go ahead with this. And also the other thing is you did have some native troops, about 100 native troops that were here, so that they were able to also help build the redoubt. And then different things happened. We know that the Zulus tried to come down here. We know that they were getting shot at from here and here. So we know that they ended up holding up at this bank by the cookhouse and by the two of the ovens. There's another oven there. That's an outside toilet. Always good when you're having a battle to have an outside toilet. And so then what happened is this area here is clear of Zulus. They can't get close enough because it's just not possible. So what happens then is the Zulus, they can't get there, so they decide they're going to go back round the front. So they've actually come from around there, and around there, and so although you've got masses of Zulus, they're now encircling the station, and they're coming up through the garden. But when they come up here, they take that door. I know we've got a couple of slides later on. I'll probably wait for a moment until we get to those. But so what you can see here, this is towards the end.
They seem to come in on the west side of the hospital.
Yeah, so they all come. They've all gone right the way round. Now then you've got the garden. Remember, we've got the rocks here. So this is down low, and it's got some,
on that northern edge.
Not only have you got some ornamental trees, but you've also got orchards with different kind of fruit-bearing trees. Right. So it's very easy for them to not be seen down there. And so that's why that's a good spot for them. You've still got the stray shot from up here that could kill you. And you've also got the other Zulus that are coming along this way.
From that eastern edge.
Now these Zulus that we actually know that they were two married regiments and some from another unmarried regiment. We know that we now know that Ketchaweo gave a particular order, which was to cut off any and all survivors from Isandlwana, because that was at the battle that happened that morning, and it was important that they were all killed before they got back onto, or before they left Zulu territory. Now, we don't know quite why, but that particular Indian, he is not there by the time they get to near Rorke's Drift, and we know he was injured in some way. So he was probably leading his men, and he got injured. But in any case, it would then seem as if the king's brother, his 40-year-old brother, is then somehow in command of what's going on here, and they decide to go to Jimmy's place because Rorke's Drift was actually James Rorke's station. So it was, I think, his about 5 years earlier, he died, and his wife finally sold the property.
Right.
So you're talking. I mean, I know that DeWitt's only been there for about a year,
Right.
so it hasn't been, and he's already changed the name of the Hilton Ossenberg down here.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're trying to piece things together historically about what's where and when, sometimes names change. It's quite hard when you're doing research on regiments and they're named after their commanding officer.
I see. Well, let's move
Sorry,
on.
yeah.
You were talking to me
I am
saying that
obsessed
some of
by this
these
stuff.
some of these sketches, they don't exactly match up. Which
Yes.
is a challenge for you for designing this.
Yeah.
So the next
Right.
one.
So that's a
looks
bit
pretty
earlier.
similar.
So that's the Zulus being checked there. Okay. And
Uh-huh.
this is his actual handwriting.
Yeah.
So and again, if you want to do another one, and then right. So that's when the
hospital
as I said,
was on
that's
fire,
when the hospital was on fire, and that they're now moving around. So this is what he's talking about. Again, you have that room. So we know, and you can see these are now just stacked mealie sacks.
Yeah.
They have not been changed. So and it's amazing that he did this for the Queen. But so next one, please.
Very cool.
All right, now this is interesting because this is actually also his work. Now you can see the drop off here. That he's done, and we know that that's not. You and I just looked at the photograph of what the site looks like, so we know that would possibly be a slight exaggeration. Yeah. Of course, these are the caves where the shots were coming from.
Yeah, so Fig 2.
Yeah. And then 8 is, and can you see there is a line. Again, there is a line. There is some indication that there's some kind of a wall there.
That is open.
Yeah. Now we know, for instance, So one of the things we didn't know, and at the end of the day, when we actually had to go forwards with the kit for Warlord Games, we decided to put 2 windows here because we know there's an account of them coming down from the window, and so we didn't know what to do about it. But we knew there was also a window on the ground floor, and it turns out it was just there is a window on the ground floor. It is very high up, so this particular kit will only have 1 window. Also, the lardery bit, the extension from the house, the roof is going in a different direction. So it's a bit strange that he's done that, but you can see clearly now where the Zulus were creeping up, which is I think 14. There you've got the outhouse there, and so they've come right the way around here, right the way down there, and then now so they're almost completely encircled now. But what happens is, just as they're coming in, there's the Nduna on horseback was shot, and we even know who shot him because the private said that he shot him. He fell off the horse, and then we know that Kuchueo's brother actually spent a lot of the time making sure he didn't get shot.
Right.
And so because he spent a lot of time making sure he didn't get shot, the whole force lost cohesion. And that's why you have they weren't actually counting guns. What you had was men not being given, like if you're playing a game and people are out of command, you have them just doing a defensive thing, and so these guys just didn't know what to do. What actually happened was their commander fell off the horse. They hadn't been given the order yet to move forwards, so they didn't, and they were just getting shot at. And that's when you get a battle that's just piecemeal. And if it had been one concerted effort, they would have got in. I mean, even though so there you go.
See, whenever we play this out on the tabletop, anytime we're playing it, because there's constant pressure from the Zulus, they eventually get in, and you are just getting crushed back into that final redoubt. Yeah, you are. And again, he's got it drawn here. These are just the way they used to stack the mealie sacks before they would be shipped. So this is food that has come. That has come to the drift because we're right on the edge of the territory now, and so this is why there's so many biscuit boxes, so much food, and a fair bit of ammunition there as well. So if we go on to the next bit now, right? So then what I've done here is I've taken one of those, the pictures that we saw that Chad did earlier. So I've taken one of those, I've realigned it and arranged it as I would want to play this on an 8x4 table. So then if that's an 8x4 table, that's roughly the angle I want to have it in, because this would be an off-table kind of effect that was happening. I know that they get checked there, I know they get checked there, and I know when they're coming in there, it's all very close at hand. I know there is a drop-off there, but this is quite important for gameplay, coming through this bit of a garden. And so the idea is now, if I was playing it, is the Zulus would come here, they would put pressure on that doorway, because it's the only doorway, and while they're putting pressure on that doorway, they're trying to catch the fire on the hospital roof. Because if they could do that over here, they would. And then as they do that, it's almost like they hit here like a tidal wave, and then bounce off round again. Yeah.
But some of them come in that way. So they come, yeah.
For the process, this is very interesting because you're now looking at it and saying, okay, I'm making the kit.
And I'm making a game.
You're also
I'm making a gaming environment.
Making the scenario.
Yeah.
You're imagining how you want to play it on the tabletop at this point, which is very cool. And then I assume from this point, so this is all just footprints of where you want stuff to eventually sit.
So this is what I call is trying to ascertain the volume of the building. So in proportion, we're not going to make buildings that are exactly the right proportions because, as I say, all our miniatures are on 6 foot bases if you equate it to real people. But what I want to do is proportionally, I want the outhouse to be in proportion the same as that is. I want these two to be in proportion. I want the corral to be in proportion, the cookhouse in proportion to the ovens. And then these are the ditches. So on the table, that would be good. If I'm going to game it, I know that I've got a road coming up through there.
Yeah.
I know I've got gardens and things over there. I know that so if I put troops in the corral, that would probably influence some off-table effect or negate it in some way. Because I don't need... Yeah, and I know you're the same. I don't need all the obvious things on the table. Sometimes I like them off-table support or off-table consequences.
You see, when we do this, we love doing it on like a 6x12.
Yeah, no, I've seen it.
And that really gives you the footprint to just lay this out and have space for the Zulus to be having to sneak up through the orchards, which is great.
It is quite incredible. I mean, it's... and of course, the thing to also remember when this happened is you have people streaming back from Isandlwana Luana who are actually saying it's terrible, it's terrible, it's terrible. And when the native, the Natal native contingent troops that are there, that are used for the most part in this instance as porters, we hear that they ran away and. It would actually seem that their white officer and their white sergeant ran away. One of them was shot by the defenders, and it was then that they ran away. So, history's always written in a way that seems appropriate, but they actually only ran when their officer ran and their sergeant was shot by the defenders because he was running. So that's probably the big reason why they left. Other than that, an awful lot in the films is, I think especially when you think about going back to the film, because this is a kind of a film sim thing we've been talking about with how to present it, because I think that film was made in 1964 and it is an amazing film. If you haven't seen Zulu, the film, you should see it. If you haven't seen Zulu Dawn, which is what happened a few miles away, 10 miles away, I think it was, or 7 miles away, you should watch that. But for me, what got me into this kind of historical gaming would probably be 3 films. I know I'm going off on a tangent. It would be Zulu, it would be Lawrence of Arabia, which I think was, I want to say 62. And then the other one, and then the other one was Bridge Over the River Kwai, which was actually done in the 50s, which means that the people in that movie are doing a movie about their own lifetime. And that's really quite intriguing. That's really very, very interesting. So historians would call it contemporaneous evidence, but...
All right, well, the next
sorry, yeah, go on.
You get onto for designing.
Yeah, right. So now so these are the accounts that happened, and this is how I plot it out. So that's the size of the building. I have the names of the people. This is a patient who's bedbound, and this is a patient who's able-bodied. I know they were shooting out from here. I know the fire started. So I know that when they're talking about the wall that's cut through, it must be this one. Right. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't touch him on that. Must be that one. I then know this is because he was actually Arthur Hook, but he was known as Henry Hook. So that's why it's Private A. Henry Hook. He was stationed here. He was also with Private Cole. Now, Private Cole was actually the guy who, for whatever reason, left his station.
Right.
And that's where we get the two confused. And these are the other people. So if we then go to the next one, these flashes are the guns that could be brought to bear on them.
So now we're figuring where you need firing slots in your wall.
That's well, yes, because we do know that DeWitt, when he came back to his house, couldn't believe that they'd made all these holes in his walls. But this is about how many guns are available to them as well. So how many people are available to shoot the guns. So you have 2 patients here that can shoot. So you had a pair here, a pair here, and a pair here. You have able-bodied soldiers here that are a pair shooting, and then you've got 1 or 2 in other places. And these are the Zulus. They've hit here. They've dragged this poor. They tended to. They had a great deal of respect for the bayonet fixed onto the rifle, and they would grab hold of the bayonet and then try and tug it away. And the British said there was I think it could have been John Williams who said it was really weird because this one guy grabbed hold of the bayonet, is pulling it towards him while he's trying to put another round in. And then he just shot the man. So it's really, it's very, I can see these are incredibly courageous warriors that are coming against them. And while they're doing this, they're setting fire to this. And then these guys will now come along here. Mm-hmm. A few of them will come into the building. So then what you've got is different accounts. And I know he's dead. I know he's dead. I know he's now dead because I've got information to say what's happened to them. Yeah. But also the reason that the Zulus are moving slowly is because their fire is now hindering them. The rest of them have now gone. So there's a finite number of Zulus in this building. And then we now suddenly find out the first mention of Maxfield, Sergeant Maxfield being in here. Mm. And I think he actually wasn't completely delirious. I think he was actually orchestrating the evacuation from his bed. We know his gun was given to another patient, so that means he can't hold it up. But we also know he was the last patient for them to attempt to remove. Now, that would only happen. You would only have somebody of senior, in command, do that if they were still in command. And I'm imagining him actually, rather than the movie when he's totally delirious, I think he is upright in bed commanding his troops.
Yeah, telling them, right, get everybody else out, come back for me last.
Yeah, and the most amazing thing you see is, so we know that they dug through here. We also know they had to dig through here. Mm-hmm. We also know these two guys weren't in this room when they dug in. Right. And so we know that from here, they had to dig through here. What we also know from now on is one of them survived, and he said at this point they thought they were Zulus and they rushed into the cupboard. Ah. So these two guys thought they had nowhere to go, so they hid in the cupboard. Now then, one of them managed to, when he came out, was killed. Yeah. The other one managed to black himself up with some dust and hid all night. And it wasn't blacking himself up so he looked like the enemy. No, that was so he would actually disappear in the night. And he survived. So we know that when these people were coming through here, they thought they were Zulus, so they hid in there. And as soon as they thought the Zulus had gone through here, they were then going to, get back into the fight. The fact that he said what they did means that they had no intention to hide. They were just disguising themselves so they could become functional. But now we have Cole, who was left hooked. So Henry Hook is in here. Also, Private Williams is here. They're shooting. You've got this is a private that's important because the thing with Connolly is he's getting over a damaged ankle, but he's shooting from his bed. These two guys have followed this one, but they are shooting. So this person is in a hurry going somewhere. Yeah. We know what these two are doing, and so the flashes give you an idea of why the Zulu can't get through. Yeah,
there's enough fire where they're trying to dig through.
Because they say it's Hook says it's such a narrow space. But narrow is relative. If you've got four guns, four muzzles, then the narrow can be wider than one for one muzzle. It's a relative statement. Yeah. And then you've got their sergeant there, and then there's some other information on here that I've got as I'm going on. This isn't all of it, so that I'm saving the surprises on that bit. All right. So some other amazing stuff happens here. They knock their way through here. And this is when Private Connolly actually gets his ankle broken again while Hook is dragging him through. Really? But the most amazing thing is that he's been dragged through here, and for some bizarre reason, we know that we don't know whether he crawled here or whatever, but we know that Maxfield is still alive. Because I think this is probably the last of these, but when you go further on, you in the information, they find that once they find this is the window that they got out of. Yeah. And we know that once they got everybody out, these two went back for that sergeant, and they could see him from over here. They could see that he was them being dispatched. Yeah, right. Well, here's a question. Sorry, I got all excited then, didn't I? This timeline, I'm guessing this really helps you engineer what sort of moment in time you want to have the kit, or what you want to engineer it to be able to do to let people have those holes for the Zulus or digging things like that. So now I've got to decide with this kit whether I put holes in all walls that potentially can be removed like we did in the first place, or whether I don't do that. And we think at the moment, sorry, that's my chair that squeaks, if you can hear it, that we think at the moment that what happened, because they say they knocked a hole through here, they say this wall came down. So we think this is some kind of a stud wall that may have been put up afterwards. And when they leaned against it, it just came down. Right. And that was a slightly earlier picture. So we thought maybe that we now think that maybe the cupboard was by the window rather than up there. Yeah. It was there. And then they got all the patients through here. They got them through that window. They went back for them. There are a few other things that happen over here with regard to the fight that's happening over there. But this is just about the evacuation of the prisoners from the hospital. And the timeline is the fact that the fire is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
We think that's going to be a great asymmetrical sort of scenario.
Well, it's a nice fighting retreat that you
and everyone's either a soldier or,
Zulu,
no, have the Zulus as the table, as the DM or the game master, and then just the objective is to get everyone out. And if you can get Sergeant Maxfield out as well, then it's like a crushing victory or a fantastic withdrawal.
Yeah,
there you go.
We move on to the final thing you have to do, which is your framing work.
Yeah, so that's how I'm looking at. The thing is with what 4Ground do is we design in 2D. We design in the more traditional way, and so this is the skin that I'm actually drawing for it. So it's not a copy and paste kind of thing. We actually draw. We actually.
I have seen you doing individual brickwork.
I do, yes, I do. And then what you'll find with this is that we actually think that because there's so many accounts of like not being all stone, we will still do the one that we did where there's a lot of render, but we also think we're going to have the option for people to have a completely unrendered one with stone as well.
I like this idea.
The trouble is it pushes the price point way up because the lasers are having to do much more work to create it. Yeah, but no, I've really enjoyed this research. Really enjoyed it. So yeah.
See, this is something I've discussed with you many times, is just that discovery process that you have to go through to create.
Well, that's what I love about it. Yeah.
How long did you spend researching concrete one time?
Oh, that was... I didn't know you were going to say that. All right. Yes, Adam, I was doing Scambassi's warehouse. And, of course, the Romans were able to make a concrete that was actually... could go off underwater.
Yes.
And so that was amazing, and that was one of the lost treasures. Yeah. And that was actually, going off on a slight tangent, that's also what we have in Fabled Realms. You know, we talk about the Dwarven liquid stone. I know. Dwarven liquid stone is a kind of magic. Yes, it is a kind of magic. What they're doing is they're making their kind of concrete. So I know that you hate people knowing that, but yeah, that's what
good secret.
Dwarven liquid stone. We have it in our world.
How many times I have caught people with that by saying, "Yeah, the dwarves in Fabled Realms, they have liquid stone."
Yeah, they do.
And people stand there and scratch their head, going, "How the hell can they make liquid stone? What kind of bloody magic is this?"
The next day, it's completely solid. Yeah. Anyway, so concrete. The early stages of modern concrete is probably the mid-19th century, and certainly the majority of that evolution and development, reinforced concrete and that kind of thing, happened in North America because you have a desire to build buildings stronger, bigger, higher, taller. Yeah.
But for me, it's seeing you actually going to make a HDF building that looks like concrete.
No, it was the time. It was supposed to be an old building, so I was researching it, and then Adam said to me, "You've spent a week doing nothing but researching concrete." And I said to him basically, so because I would have been sacked, obviously. But yes, it was a very interesting journey.
Yeah. All right. Now let's move on to the next point that I wanted to cover, because we had I'm
getting nervous now.
No, we had a discussion about you guys are now bringing on people who you're going to do production stuff for.
Right. Yes.
But you've also got in-house designers, and you have a couple of different types that you guys do. And what I'm curious about for the design process for them is...
my drink.
Oh, yeah, do you
think? This could be any fizzy drink.
Well, what I'm curious about is you'll have freelancers and you'll have people who are on team the whole time.
Yes.
So for your freelancers, I'm assuming that's just people who have a project that you've given them the task of and they have a deadline to get it done.
So we have trained... we have trained designers to be able to work as designers within the company, because we have many projects that are nothing to do with wargaming.
Yes.
And we just have to, a project that comes in, we're not getting the files in. Sometimes we get vectored files in that just go straight onto our lasers. The lasers can read them and cut them out, and we send them off, and there's several thousand widgets that have gone somewhere. Sometimes somebody comes to us and they want something, and so they've given us a good brief of it. maybe a mood board or a montage of what they want, and then they know that would then cost them more for one of our designers to then do that.
Yes.
So that's why we have the two in-house designers, and that's Kev and Andy. And Andy happens to be, I call Andy the creative one simply because it's wargaming and Andy is a wargamer. Yeah. Whereas Kev is obviously by default, he has to be a model maker because of the job he does, yes. But he's not a wargamer, but he does like a good display. And in that respect, believe it or not, I'm actually more of a model maker or a diorama maker than I am as a wargamer. Yeah. Also, my famed ability to roll one has not helped my career as a wargamer. So that's that side of thing, and so we call Andy the creative, and we call Kev the technical designer. Think of it as if they were in the traditional building industry. Then
engineer or an architect.
Yeah, well, Kev likes to do his bricklaying, and he can do some very nice brickwork, but he just wants to lay his bricks. Yeah. And Andy wants to make his stones look very nice and very neat, and everyone looks at his work and they go, wow. And everyone looks at his work, at Kev's work, and they go, that's awesome. And how long did it take you? Like, very short period of time. Yeah. And it's important for us as a company to be able to have the in-house designers to design the work, because if you are forever relying on freelance designers, then you've got to realize that that's another company. That's not a contracted employee. Yeah. That is an individual company in their own right. They just happen to be another person, and you're a company. Yeah. So that's why we have the in-house designers. Now, the in-house designers, they have what we call their retainer, which for want of a better word is their salary, I suppose you call it. And they also get a small percentage of the designs that they actually work for if 4Ground retains the intellectual property, if that makes sense. So for instance, they would then get that small piece forever and a day. That's an inheritable thing. It's a bit like their pension fund. Yeah. Now, if they're doing work for a customer and the customer wants that design, then we will probably say to our in-house designer, right, the customer wants that design. So now it's probably better that you do that in your own time, and we do that as a subcontractor, because in the same way as, we had our beautiful sculpts done for Fabled Realms. Yes. Well, they cost us a lot of money, as you know, but that's because we have all the intellectual property to it. Jared's done a phenomenal amount of artwork for us, but in the memorandum of understanding between us, which is like a contract between two businesses, Jared is able to generate revenue from his from that artwork. He's also able to use that artwork in his portfolios to show people what he can do, which is why I think if you go to the Red Epic, I think you'll find out what it is. You can buy the Fabled Realms map right now from Jared himself, and like the ones on the Kickstarter, they will forever and a day be signed by Jared. Which is great, and Jared's a nice guy. And his artwork for all the cards. I mean, this guy had to do for a year a card a day. Yeah. Now that sounds, that's not very difficult. But just think about it. A piece of artwork a day.
To the quality that you guys got from
and,
as
and
well.
he actually said to us, I think I'm a much better artist at the end of the year. And I said to him, well, you weren't very good at the beginning, so I'd hope so. No.
That burn.
No, he calls me Uncle Ben. He does like me. I think he likes me. Yeah.
But that's another great thing as well, because of the way you guys work. I mean, you've trained your designers in-house from the ground up. So as a route into 2D designers,
industry,
that's really interesting.
Yes, we're also working with Cardiff. We're also working with one of the lecturers over at it's actually Cardiff Technical College. I always call him John Crow. It's Johansson, I believe, John Johansson. Right. And we've been doing some things with their students about most people do 3D design, that kind of thing, because they want a vocational job. But the thing to remember is that the chance of you getting a job that fits your vocation is very slim. Yeah. You are not going to do that. And so what's good for us is we'll come along and we'll give them a project that is fun for them to do. Yeah. And it also gives us a chance to talk to them about what's going to happen. In fact, I think if I'm right in saying that you might actually see sometime next year, one of John's actual students has got, because you need self-motivation. This person's got the self-motivation, they've acquired the skill, and they've had the right tutelage, and he could be coming on board as a freelance designer with us next year, which would be great for him. Yep. And that would be when he's actually going on to do his degree work. So it would be marvellous to think, there he is getting his final qualifications, moving on to Cardiff University, and he's already got his finger in the door with his job.
Well, it's one thing I've noticed. Okay, now this is going to sound a little bit weird, but for any job you want to get, You have people who it's just a job. They will work 9 to 5. As soon as
Yeah.
it's 5, they're out the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas you have other people where they want to turn a job in this industry into a career. And those are the people that you're going to see are going to throw in the extra hours to make sure projects are done on time, go off their own back to actually get there, do extra stuff. Because I mean, for me personally, what I've discovered in the last 8 years, this is a lifestyle job. The industry, everybody, it's a lifestyle job. You want to do it because it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if that's not why you're in this industry, you shouldn't be in this industry.
Yeah, and when I don't know about the other people that come here, but I know when we come here, you'll find Cad and I are working out there on laptops or on something. And then if we're going to go and eat together, I have to wait sometimes till 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night till you're finished because you've got things to do. So it is that very much a vocational thing.
Yeah, but it becomes a lifestyle piece.
It does, yeah.
Where you want it to succeed.
We'll become sad.
Well, everything you throw into it is designed by yourself. You're just throwing more into it to keep the thing alive, to keep it going.
Yeah,
And
that's why.
That's something I love about this industry.
Yes, and then I fully agree with that. And also the other problem we have as 4Ground is we are there constantly trying to show people what we can do. We're not there trying to say, "Oh, that's really simple. I could do that in a moment."
Yeah.
That's the wrong thing to do. You're not supposed to. We're definitely not there to compete with other laser cut manufacturers because
you're there to make cool toys.
Yeah, no, we're a part of. We're a cog in so many people's wheels. We're happy to be a cog in their wheel. So there's some of the better well-known manufacturers. If they have a run on a particular kind of kit, we'll make it for them. It's unpainted, and that's a contractual thing that we'll do with them. But we've now gone to the next stage, which is now we are offering our. If you think of lasers as printers, we're offering our printing service the same way, and publishing and distribution the same way as if you'd. And I know I've said it on a couple of other talks we've had this last week, but a bit like Osprey. If I've got a good set of rules, Osprey say send them in, and if they think they're good enough, they'll say let's talk. Well, we're actually not quite like that in so much as an actual fact is that you can just come to 4Ground and say, I would like that done. Yeah. And then what we say is, well, you tell us what you want us, the files that you want us to deal with, and then we will tell you which ones we think would work in the portfolio that you're offering. Yeah. In this instance, I'm going to talk now about a guy, Jörg, who's now based in the USA, but he's actually a German citizen. Yeah. And he's over in Germany over in America for a few years, and he's found himself going down into his basement, and he's the guy behind, the designer behind Things from the Basement. Yeah, which is this. Now this is a current product of Things from the Basement, and this is their samurai feudal Japan. Dojo for archers, and this is also this is the archery butts for them. Yeah.
If I grab this, I can show.
Okay, and then this is, think of it as a 15th century or 16th century golf club, and this is where all the
this is the pitching mat.
Yeah. So this is where all the samurai actually go underneath. Yeah. So everything has been designed by Jörg. Yes. So he's been given certain technical information that he has to make sure that he fits in with the materials we're using. And then what happens is, and this is after we have finalized the memorandum of understanding, like a contract between two individuals, an employer and an employee. A memorandum of understanding is so that you can just walk away from things if they're being done wrong or if you're not happy. And when we've got to the stage where we were happy with that, Jörg now sends us the files. We get the files in the program that we choose. And we then, he's already set the plates that he wants for the sprues, but there's always some tinkering that we have to do. We don't like to do very much, obviously, because we're meant to be, we're not meant to be
You're producing, not designing.
We're not changing his kit. But we can give him some production advice. That happens all the time. Yes. It's his final decision. I mean, the color palette that he chose, we then thought, did you want a different color palette? And he's come back and he said, no, he prefers this color palette. So he's chosen all these colors. He has a swatch of 26 colors. He's having it pre-painted with the primer sealer that we do. In fact, he's opted for both sides. So every bit is double-sided. So it means that he's happy with that, and you can change it to any colors because of that. He likes those colors. He likes the way it's been done. He's got his Lost Archipelago range of like Inca-esque buildings. If you go to Things from the Basement, you'll see everything that he does, and he's now trying to work his way through with those files, getting them over to us.
Yeah.
Now then, they say that he owns the design right to those. He owns the copyright to those.
Yes.
He knows how much it's going to cost him for us to get it to the public, distribute it to retailers with the things from the Basement logo, but also manufactured by 4Ground.
Yeah.
And it's going to be exactly the same then. It means that if you're somebody out there and you've got a desire to design, that doesn't necessarily mean you can get an income from it yet.
Although I do like the idea that the way you're doing this, the onus is on the designer to actually get his projects done and get them to you, because all you're focusing on is the production aspect. You're not promising the public anything. No. It's all on that designer, and I really like that.
And they have to do their instructions the way they would do their instructions. Everything that we're offering it's more what they are getting with us is they are getting all the facility. We've got the 10 flat bed lasers. We're already in talks with some other 3D designers, because we have 7 3D printers that will be available from, I think, April onwards after we've done the Kickstarter stuff.
Yep.
And I think it's the way to go. I think a lot of designers who have amazing skill haven't had the right breaks, or just haven't been in the right situation to make that their full-time job.
That scaling of, okay, I'm doing this for fun, and then, okay, I now need to get a bigger machine, I now need to get a more professional machine, I now need 2 professional machines, I now need 4 professional machines, where am I putting these 4 professional machines?
I guarantee if you see, right, so you'll see some kits and it looks like it's a product, another product, another product, and another product. And there are other designs, for whatever reason, you think, oh, there's a bit of a person in there. I can say, for instance, Martin from Wallbases is a friend of mine. His stuff, I always see a bit of Martin in it. There's other stuff around sometimes when you see it and you think, oh, that's just what's needed next? Yeah. That's just the way it happens. Jörg, all his kits are lovely. I love the way he does this stacking options that he does with his Lost Archipelago. So it's a real pleasure to work with him. So if you are creative and you do want to get in the industry and you are still going through uni, or you do have a day job, then, and you want to get in touch, then we're happy to talk to people. Well,
it also brings me to the final point I really wanted to touch on, which is the design cycle that you guys run through.
Okay, yeah.
So for these guys who are outside guys coming in to use your production facilities, that's great. They can do things in their own time. But your in-house designers, what is the sort of cycle on production that you see? Because say one of your in-house designers has finished a project, is there like a hit list of things that are interesting you that is waiting for people? Or is it just do some research, see what strikes your inspiration next? Is it freeform like that?
Bit of both.
Bit of both?
Right. So if I were to say, for instance, that so Kev is actually head of design. So bizarrely, if I do get to do some design work, I'm actually part of his team. And then the next minute, I'm walking through the door and wearing a different hat because I've got a different job on, and I know I very, very rarely get a chance to design. And sometimes I'm actually Kev's PA.
Really?
It's simply because there'll be some projects and I've got to ride them to get them through, and Kev's got so many others. And because of what it is, because some of our customers, the big customers in other fields, they were used to dealing with myself or Adam, possibly Cad in the past, and so to have Kev do it for them, Kev has identified that they don't actually think he is the last word. Therefore, they want to ask me. I then go and ask Kev. Kev is the last word, he tells me, and I then tell them, because that's the way it's got to work. But that's just that's to do with other fields that we work. That's procedural, and we do that to try and facilitate things to make them go as smoothly as possible. So 4Ground, we are lucky with, because 4Ground has always been the other thing we do, and so we've always been able to have some passion for it.
That's what always comes across in your kit.
But also at the same time, we don't want to genuinely don't want to bully creative talent that's out there, because we're the big I am. We're not really the big I am. We're a big fish in a tiny pond. This is not a big.
You're a very shiny fish.
We're a pre-painted fish in a burnt wood pile. And also we're very used to working. There are all these designers out there. We would rather love to work for them. We would love there's nothing more wonderful than the success of seeing people wanting what you've created.
But that's where your creative passion comes through for people and makes them want it. Because I mean, like you guys from day dot, when you started doing your pre-painted stuff, I know this probably sounds horrible, but you were a cut above, quality-wise.
I thought we were a
paint
above, not cut above.
A brushstroke above.
Oh, yeah.
But it's one of those things that always came through to me. Yes, you may have been a little bit higher on the end of you're going to pay a bit more for this, but for what you were getting, it was just like, yeah, well worth it.
Yeah, but what you also see with this stuff, because we were always trying to show what we could do, when you see some of Jörg's work, it's all beautifully thought out, but we're almost behaving like the child who wants a history project noticed.
Yeah.
And some of what, so Jörg's really surprised at what the follow-through price is for the retail.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have to worry about any stock or supplying custom. All he's going to be doing now in future is design, which is what he wants to do. He's going to do his tests, sends it over to us. We get given the palette that he wants us to use. We then send him over the kit. And he's in the States, but it doesn't matter. Our postage means that from everything that goes out from our warehouse, including mail order, it takes 24 hours before it's in New York State.
Yeah.
Because it's literally, one stop, and how long it takes for Americans to get from New York to them is, they know, some of them it might take a week, but so it is as quick as if he was still based in Germany for us to have that physical thing.
Yeah.
So our designer, so that's what he does. Our designers, they know what projects they want to do. Sometimes, like for instance, Andy was getting married, so he did some other stuff of his own in the evening. Then Kev got married, did the same sort of thing. Sometimes they make a project and they think this would be a good thing that could be commercialized. They might put it through one of our other representations, other than there's Wiley Valley design, and there's also Time Again Historic Toys for the heritage site. So they might go through one of those other gateways to the end user. 4Ground is definitely our sandbox, our playroom.
Yeah, but that's what makes it so good.
Yeah.
Well, Ben, it's been a pleasure having
Thanks
a look
very much.
inside your head. Everybody,
why have you made me be so grown up for so long? I hate it.
Everybody, tell you what, get your comments in below. Tell us what you think of the design process of 4Ground. Is there anything you're curious about? Or are you one of those laser cut designers out there who maybe want to reach out to them? And, see
and we'll always talk.
Done?
We're always happy to talk.
Yeah.
We can't necessarily be that responsive because we have a lot on, but whenever we can, we'll do that.
All right, well, everybody, we'll move on here. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now, and be sure to check out beastsofwar.com for the latest gaming news and gaming Let's Plays. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.